Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. I'm your host, Matthew White. I'm the salesman part of the title. Each week, I sit down with CEOs and entrepreneurs to discuss and dissect their journeys, filled with triumphs, challenges, and some good old-fashioned business wisdom. Get ready to laugh, learn, and be inspired as we dig into leadership, strategy, sales, marketing, and everything in between. This is the CEO and the Salesman podcast. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to the CEO and the Salesman podcast. My name's Matthew, and we always want to talk to interesting people who are in the software and technology space. Today, we're joined by Terry Wilson, the CEO of Chatmetrics. How are you going, Terry?
Great, thanks. Good to be here.
Hey, mate, we were just having a chat before we hit record on your history and what you've done. I want to hear how you went from, being a bushie, working in the meat industry to how, eventually listing your company on the stock market. So can you just take me through that?
Sure. It's long story short, I did grow up in the bush, central west New South Wales. Population of the place I grew up in was 70. A pub and a rec ground, and that was about it. For the post office was 5 miles down the road. My nearest neighbour was 1.5 clicks away. Spent a bit of time, the odd jobs earlier on through the abattoir and building kitchens. Then moved down to Sydney into the meat industry. Spent a couple of years in the meat industry, butcher shops, a company that had 52 butcher shops and so forth. Realised that I wanted to get into accounting as a career. So moved to Newcastle in the steel industry, got my accounting qualifications, and then pretty soon realised with the steel business I joined that if I wanted to move into management, I really needed to have a sales experience. And about 3 years into my accounting career, I was state manager at the time, took a backward step into a sales role, and the sales manager that I used to give a hard time every month about not hitting his budget, well, guess what? I started working for that guy.
The word has turned.
Yeah, it was. So the first thing he did was threw the yellow pages at me and said, "Fill the truck up. It's going north on Thursday."
Wow!
And so that was the first experience. And in fact, I filled that truck up in 3 hours, where it would normally take the guys of the team 3 days. So long story short, I was promoted quickly through branch manager and regional manager, state manager roles, and then that business was listed on the stock exchange, and then acquired by Smorgon Steel, then acquired by BlueScope Steel. So I sort of had this continuity of service, 27-year industry career, 25 years with BlueScope, got the watch to prove it. And the last couple of roles I had in BlueScope, National Sales and Marketing Manager for the steel division, which had 1,000 employees. I had 300 odd salespeople working for me at the time. And then full general manager's role with in that business as well, $300 million business, 300 people. The last two gigs were actually running integrations of a couple of acquisitions that they did, and we ran both the technology and the operational integration side of those businesses. And on budget, on time is how I like to roll. And they were the first two SAP integrations that actually ran on time and on budget in BlueScope's history. So. And then that was enough for me. I was out of there. I wanted to do my own thing after that.
I've been involved in a few SAP implementations, and that sounds like a real outlier, having those things on time and on budget.
Well, it was really interesting earlier on when Smorgon's first acquired Steelmark. They tried to do an integration of SAP for the Victorian business as a starting point. They switched it on after everything that they did. They switched it on and literally burnt $19 million and then switched it off again. It was horrific. Yeah. So I learned a lot from all of those from afar. I had nothing to do with it at that stage, and I was lower levels in the organisation, but enough to know that when it was my turn, I was going to make sure I got it right. So I went back and learned about all the things that they did wrong. And it's change management. It's the people side is the biggest challenge in any of these things.
So true. Absolutely. And so what did you take away? I mean, so now you run a software business and you help businesses generate leads. So how did you go from that to where you are now?
It's a funny story. It's always one of those aha moments. I was at a stage in my career where I really didn't want to go too much further in the steel industry, and I was interested in a change, and I guess my radar was up. My wife was getting her hair done. We'd moved to Melbourne. My wife was getting her hair done, and I was sitting. She said she'd be ready in 10 minutes. I went and sat out the front of the hairdressing salon. This guy sat down beside me. We got chat. He was waiting for his wife as well. Well, 45 minutes later, our wives still haven't come out. We've solved half the problems of the world.
Yeah.
And our wives came out arm in arm, actually laughing. they'd known each other for 3 months. We didn't realize that. We just connected on a park bench. My wife set up a little business in Melbourne, Richmond Skin and Laser Clinic. This guy was doing her website. It had been running for about 6 months, doing a bit of AdWords, et cetera, and he put this thing live chat. This little widget popped up on the website. At that time, I'm talking about 2012, I thought it was hacked. I didn't know what it was, right? So seriously, It's like I jumped on, who are you? What are you doing on this website? Because I'm a bit of a control freak and coming from corporate, it's like, hang on, I didn't sign up on this.
What's going on? Yeah.
And so I rang the web guy, pal, and said, mate, what's this? And he goes, I'm just trying out a new thing. I think it'll help you get more leads. Well, mate, it went from she was getting 2 to 3 appointments a week through her website to she was getting 4 or 5 a day through her website. It was phenomenal, the impact. And so we sort of got to know each other over the next couple of years. And the aha moment for me was about 6 months after then, where he switched it off and the appointments just virtually stopped and went back to 2 or 3 a week. And I rang him and said, what's going on? He goes, I just got to make a few changes. I've got a few team changes. It'll be back up in a couple of days. And when he put it back on again, the leads went back and I thought, man, that was my aha moment. There's something here. As we got to know each other over the next couple of years, he actually came to me and said, look, did you want to get together and make this live chat thing work? So as much as we do provide the software, it's not our own software. What I really run is a staffing business. We provide staffing software, so much as, but it's all pretty much for tech businesses. So we're in the software world, that's for sure.
Got it. So the unique person, because we've all heard about chatbots, but the unique part about your business, which I like, is the fact that you're actually talking to a real person. So you got 30 something people, is that right?
Yeah, a bit over that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're 30 something people out there and waiting to communicate. And so you spend a lot of time working with those people, training them to communicate. And so their job is to capture the inquiry, communicate with the person on the website and drive them towards an appointment or a purchase, something like that. Is it?
I love that language you just used. That's the sales language. That you would never hear anybody in our business speak like that. Capture them, drive them here, push them there.
That's
it's
right.
The opposite.
Exactly.
It's the opposite. So our aim is to give the website visitor an experience where they think they're just having an amazing customer service experience. It's the first exposure to the brand usually, or first two-way interaction with the brand. Yes. And so, things like anonymous conversations, we don't ask for any contact details up front. It's like, what's your name, obviously? And then we'll answer their questions. And then when it's right in the conversation, we'll answer their questions. We'll start to ask them some questions, which happen to be the qualifying questions that our client wants, needs to know. And then at a point in time, there's usually a natural segue to book a meeting for them. But the team itself, and the biggest IP in our business has been able to set up, we've got a very, very intensive learning management system and recruitment and onboarding process, so that the training and development our team go through. I mean, I'm fascinated with behavioral science, and I think that that's what's allowed us to be able to build the team the way it is at such a high quality, because the recruitment process, the onboarding process, the training and development, 15% of every shift, our team are in training. They're 15% of every shift, they're in training.
Wow.
The structure we've built around it with a level of supervision. Every single chat gets audited to make sure it's compliant with the client's expectations. So, that language is of push and drive. One of the heaviest duty training components that we've got is empathy, and understanding empathy and delivering empathy through the keyboard. Because you got to remember, it's not like you and me having a conversation where I can see your face and we can hear the tone in our voice. For the chat guys, it's all through the keyboard. All they get to see is those letters in text that come up on the screen in front of them. So they've got to, make a good assessment call on what sort of mood this person's in.
Yeah. Okay. So you're dealing with so in the peak of my madness, I didn't have the size of business you were managing with BHP with BlueScope. So my peak of my madness was 70 people. You've got 30 something people now. But I noticed on LinkedIn the other day that you wrote an article, and it says, I wrote it down. We had to let a team member go, and I slept like a baby. So do you want to tell the listeners that story?
Well, it's the post was actually about how over the years, I've probably terminated close to 1,500 people. When you're involved in acquisitions and you're doing mergers, there's synergy benefits and cost down and cost reductions that are expected by large organizations. And so Those termination discussions, they're never easy. They're never easy. And look, even a step back from that, I did a post over Christmas that said, when I was 19, I was casual. So I was not a W-2 employee as the US understand it. I was casual employee, was working, the accountant that I was working for, the financial controller I was working for had resigned. And so I was reporting to the director of finance of a company in Newcastle. And he came out one day and said, okay, that project's finished. You've got to terminate these 2 staff members. And I'm like, well, hang on, man, I'm not even permanent here. I'm casual. Am I going to be next? And it's like, well, I'm 19 years old. I've never done this before. He goes, you go and work it out. Make it happen tomorrow. Okay.
Wow.
So I went home. I actually had a chat with Dad. I rang Dad and said, mate, this is what they've said to do. He goes, well, you've got to think about it like this. If you don't do it now with these 2, it's probably likely you're going to have to do it with a lot more later on, because what you're doing now is setting the business to make sure that you're protecting everybody else that's in the business. He said, but the big difference is how you have the conversation with these people and why. Always remember they are people and naturally a high empath. So that was always going to be the case.
Yes.
It was a shitty conversation. I cried, they cried, I started crying and they cried. It was like we hugged each other at the end of it and said, I can hear all the HR people hugged. I mean, we're talking a long time ago, so there wasn't as much crap you have to worry about these days. And in the end, they did actually, they were okay. I mean, the way I delivered is that it's not about them or their performance. The business circumstances have changed as much as they didn't like that. They knew that there was other opportunities for them as well, and it was the way it went. But that for me sort of alerted me at a very young age that you're going to be doing this sort of stuff. You need to have an awareness. And then business qualifications, accounting, and then moving into management myself, it was like, I've actually built a framework now, very, very simple framework that allows me to know exactly what's the right path to take. Should you be discipline somebody, or should you be having a more formal conversation that might impact their career?
Do you want to take us through that?
Sure.
Is this the right format to take us through that?
Yeah, sure. So it's pretty simple. It's a framework that I can't even tell you the books or quote the books that I got it from, because it's a couple of different ones. But the initial component is an expectation that you have onboarded this person, you've got the right person for the job, you've done that, you've given them the right tools, and you've both agreed on the expectations in terms of outcomes. So let's assume they're doing their job. They've been doing okay for a year. Something's changed and their performance has dropped off. So there's only 2 questions that I ask at that point in time, and that is, can they do it? Is it a can't do it situation, or is it a won't do it situation? I always lean to the can't do it situation and say, okay, what's going on? Is something changed in your role? The task changed? Your life changed? Something going on that's meant that this is a can't do? And if that's the case, reset, retrain, reset expectations. Even mine, sometimes expectations had to be changed, because you're talking about outcomes, business outcomes here. And if you find that it's a won't do, it's more attitudinal, then it's more the firm, you don't even give that second chance. If you see that it's attitudinal from the beginning, then you have a formal conversation immediately. If it's a can't do, apologetic, want to, something's changed, their circumstances have changed, their mindset's drifted off somewhere, they need to get back online, then it's helping and coaching. I find too often that managers were wanting to give everyone that second chance and go down the coaching path when it's very clearly an attitudinal issue from the beginning. I mean, one guy was a forklift operator, and the operations man, and he was damaging a lot of stock. Steel, when you stick a forklift into it, bends and it's unsaleable, or you lose your money on it. Simple as that. And the operations manager always wanted to give him second chances. Well, we got up to about $10,000 worth of stock this guy's damaged, and that was getting to the point of beyond a joke. And so I got him in and sat down and had a chat, and he was like, "Oh, I don't care. You tell me, I can't do it any different. That's the way I'm." I thought, well, okay, hang on, there's this. So we went through the disciplinary process, 3 steps, warning 1, 2, the third one, you're out. When we had the termination conversation with him, this guy I've got to describe, he's a storeman in a steel yard. The guy is 6'7".
Jeez. Okay.
Twice the width of me, built like the proverbial brick shithouse.
Yep.
And
a steel worker. Yeah.
And when we terminated him, he actually slumped down in the chair. He put his head down in his hand, and he actually started to cry. And he said, "Thank you." And like the operations manager and I are sitting there looking at each other. "Thank you." He goes, "I've always wanted to be a chef, but I could never resign from here. My family would have been too embarrassed if I did that. So now I can go and be a chef."
Wow.
It's like, what? It's like, man, if you'd have told us that way back, we could have helped you find a chef job somewhere and just do a transition, So it's like,
yeah, right.
But he was, so I mean, you never know why anybody's doing anything. I think that's the main thing. So it's like, find out why. And if it's something you can help them with, you can help. If not, then it's disciplinary. So, and that was the case with this employee last week, unfortunately. It was attitudinal. She hadn't been honest through the recruitment process. We could see that she could definitely do the job, but as soon as she got her piece of paper to say, "Yeah, now you're full-time," everything changed. And so we don't put up with that kind of rubbish. We can't, because our business relies on delivering quality and value. No locking contracts, mate. But there's no locking contracts in our business, in our world.
Yeah.
So it's like if we don't do the right thing by a client, they can go the next month. So
you're done.
Yeah, that's right. So we don't tolerate that in our business either.
So you're running humans to have these conversations, to nurture and I won't say drive and convert. And so
to solve their problems, we're helping them solve their problems.
That's right. They're not on the website for a haircut, unlike your wife. So why have you chosen to go the route of a human than a bot? I mean, AI is taking over the world. You can't walk out your front door without somebody telling you the new AI agent can solve all your problems and mow your lawn. So what are you thinking about that? How does that work for you and your business, and how does that look in going forward?
Look, valid question, and one that Pal and I spoke about probably 3 months ago. And we've got our fingers all over AI. Don't worry, we've got a couple of chatbots running in the background. But for me, there's the underlying belief. It may be naivety, but human beings are human beings, and human beings like to connect to humans. Now, not everybody will, but psychology hasn't changed much in the last 100 years. Hasn't changed much in the last 1,000 years. And I don't think it's going to change too quickly moving forward. Now, we'll see behavioral patterns change a little, where people will be more inclined or more interested in chatting with a chatbot or an AI. But people like to buy from people that they like or that are like them.
And I absolutely love that. I tell people all the time, you're not B2B, you're B2C, you're H to H, human to human. I absolutely love that. And I write articles about that. I really saw one last week about being more human is the antidote to the AI tsunami of very mid-range content.
And I actually saw a report, I can't remember who it was from, but it was from one of the big guys like KPMG or PwC, where they are forecasting that as much as the AI wave is coming through and there's a lot of interest, they're forecasting a massive wave and increase in demand of human-to-human interaction in sales and business overall, because of a couple of things. We've all been through the pandemic. Everyone's been forced to work from home. I'm introvert, so I love that anyway. It was great. I don't want to talk to anybody. And then post that, now we've got this AI thing that's sort of pushing everybody to talk to some type of AI agent or talk to a chatbot. And people, there's a bit of rebellion. There's always places for that kind of stuff. Put a Cisco router manual into an engineer tech bot and let some engineer chat with using keywords to that all day long. Or, if you're selling $2.50, $30 T-shirts on an e-commerce store, sure. I mean, there's an expectation from the buyers that you've got to keep it low cost. But if you're selling, 5-6-figure software packages or a 5-6-figure manufactured item, or, a $50,000 education program or a $5,000 education program, people are much more inclined to want to talk to a person, and they'll have a range of questions and just want to get a sense of what it feels like to deal with that company. And the question that I've been asked a bit, and it's been a bit of both ways actually, but the question I've been asked a bit lately is, or told why the prospects are speaking to us rather than just going to a bot, is we don't want to give our first brand experience to a customer to be chatting to a piece of technology, whether it's a chatbot or AI or whatever. They actually want that first brand experience. We want them to feel what it's like to really be dealing with us. We deal in partnerships. We want to have our clients and prospects understand that we really do care about them. And, that's why we're having the conversations with you. So it's like, I use it where I can in marketing. My biggest challenge is I do have that bit of sales guy in me. So when I do a post, it's too hard not to say, hey, look at this, look at what we do, buy us. These are the reasons why you should. We talked about that earlier. But, the reality is that the clients themselves tell me, or the prospects and the people at the sales meetings that I have tell me the same thing, that's why they're talking to me, because they want people to have that human connection.
I really like that. The first interaction with the brand is a personalized one, and just sets the tone for the whole time. When the person, am I going to get personalized service? Am I going to get bot service? Am I going to be a number, or am I going to be important? All of that flows from that, messy middle marketing piece where somebody hears about your brand and then they do a bunch of things. They might land on the website. But if those interactions are positive, then they're going to be more likely to engage with the business in the future, or if not now.
So think about this. We train our team very much about understanding emotions through the keyboard. We train them in empathy. We train them in early stage of rapport building. It's all the soft touch stuff is the heavy duty training. And then obviously there's the knowledge about the client's product and offering and so forth. But they all have to get through that core training to start with. Late 2020 or early 2021 it was, one of our agents was pinged in the chat on one of our clients' websites, and it was a young guy, and he asked one question about something completely unrelated to the product. And the agent said, I think you're on the wrong website. And he came back and said, I just want to talk to somebody. And then the conversation went on that this guy, lost his job 3 months before through COVID. He's stuck at home. He never gets to talk to anybody, see anybody. It was getting quite a dark conversation. From our side, the agent was just demonstrating empathy, really listening, not saying anything. None of my team have been trained to respond in these types of situations beyond the empathy. It got to the stage where the guy said, look, he's been thinking about ending it all and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, man, the conversation was happening like real time. So I didn't find out about it until after. But I'm so proud because when it got to the end of it, the guy said, thank you so much. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you. I feel so much better. I'm going to go and start looking for a job. And I've gone, the messaging's coming through to me that this is the chat that happened. I went and had a look at the chat. You know what our team member did? You know why it was such a good conversation? They listened. They listened.
Yeah.
All they did was listen. They were there to talk to. But it's like have you read How to Win Friends and Influence People? So you remember there's a section in that book that says, you want to be the best conversationalist, learn how to listen.
Ask questions, learn how to listen.
Right. So that's the way that we operate. And in that particular instance, I got goosebumps talking about it, actually. In that particular instance, that was the outcome we got. I mean, obviously, we're giving our guys some training now in case this circumstance happens again.
Yeah.
But that out of the blue, you talk about now a piece AI. Nah, sorry, not for me. Not that that's a situation that you're going to be having all the time, but in that situation, you would hate to be someone reviewing the transcripts in 6 months' time and then see the end of where an AI conversation might have ended up like that.
Yeah, so, if you're not looking to buy our widget today, this is probably the wrong website. All the best. See you later. I'll close the chat now.
Yeah, that's right. And never even know.
Yeah. And so, what do you see as the future? I mean, we talked about is it going to be augmented people, or you just feel that it's that personal connection really is what's going to drive that market differentiation for yourself?
So for us, there is some augmentation now. So we use AI to help in the back end with regards to helping with the prompting of the responses. It's making the team look faster, really, in responding as far as this is some suggestions in terms of the knowledge that we have about this particular customer. So we're augmenting that now already. Look, there are already offerings for fully AI chatbots because it's AI on a website. It's still a chatbot, whatever
Sure.
you look at it. It's live chat, but it's still a chatbot. There's offerings now, and if your client base is happy with that, and that's the offering that you've got, then that's the path you probably should go. It should be the cheapest option. It's technology. I've seen some, AI SDR offerings where they're trying to offer almost the same price as a human being. I'm like, really? I mean, this is software. This is $50 a seat stuff. It's
absolutely. I've got an inbox full of people trying to sell me Joanne, the AI emailer, and $2,500 US per month for 3,000 contacts.
Yeah. And they're basing that pricing on replacing a person. It doesn't replace a person yet.
No.
Yet.
No.
It does not. It might augment and might help and make them more productive. Efficient. But at this stage, I don't think you're going to see wholesale reductions I guess in the areas that we operate in. I mean, I saw Telstra put off, 2,800 people last April because they'd shifted over to AI functionality in their business. I don't know exactly where those people were coming from, but, when there's silly repeat tasks that are just the same thing over and over again, even the worst AI chatbot's going to be better than the Telstra bloody call center when you get on there to try and, help the help desk try and get something solved.
Absolutely. There's the great challenge with help desks that I've come across and clients that have run those things or clients that have dealt with those things also run them, is that often the poor people in those environments have a script to play with, and they can't go outside. They can't say you're on the wrong website. They can't have empathy. They're saying they say this is the only game in town, and then they have the gall to say, "Is there anything else I can help you with?"
Yeah, that's
right. Well, you haven't helped.
Yeah,
we've achieved nothing other than an hour worth of frustration.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yes, there is something you can help me with, but you've not helped. It's from both sides. The corporate script writers have written the script because it's had to be passed through 73 different layers of approvals and lawyers, and then the poor human who's always going to have a different situation occur. Those two things are a mismatch.
It's really interesting. We also have chats where we can't answer that. We just can't answer the question. And it's very interesting to watch the expectation of the person on the other side of the chat, the website visitor. Some people are okay, look, I can't find that. Give us your details. I can get back to you, but we can't respond to that now. Others are like, oh, this is hopeless. Why wouldn't you? And I look at it and go, well, yeah, I get it. And in that particular instance with that particular person, we couldn't answer. But guess what? We can next time because we go back to our client, say, okay, how do we answer this in future? It was a blocker on this conversation and move forward. So, we're constantly growing that knowledge base and growing. So we can do that proactively from our side. But it's really interesting because exactly the same thing can have very different outcomes depending on the individual that you're talking to. Some people are more than happy to wait. Like if they literally wait, most of our clients we've got an immediate Slack channel with, so we can always ping them and ask them, look, I've got someone now that we need to have this answer for. And then there's others that, don't use Slack and it's an email and we'll have to get back to you tomorrow. And then there'll be people
that at midnight or something like that.
And there's people that are happy to just simply hand some contact details over because of the, nice, polite conversation we've had with them. Now, there's nothing worse than this needy bot saying, oh, you give me your email address, I'll transfer you over to an agent. And then it says, oh, so you hand your email over and it says, oh, sorry, there's no agents available right now. Get someone to email you back. It's like, oh,
happens so much, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's funny.
So,
but, look,
so what type?
All that stuff works. All that stuff works. Chatbots have a place. AI has a place. And I think I'm quietly confident that humans will have a place for quite some time moving forward. Certainly, by the time I'm pushing up the daisies, I don't think I'll see them completely replaced. That's for sure.
Well, that's right. I think it's just so I listened to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about how AI is whilst it might be possible it's like the invention of the tractor. We're all 500 years ago all moving, trying to pull the carrots out of the ground. Now a tractor comes along and takes all those jobs. Those people don't just disappear. They find other jobs. There's a migration and a new set of skills and different set of skills from pulling up carrots to now operating machinery. The human race didn't end because we no longer needed 500 people to till a field. We now need 2. So it is just a transfer of skill. And humans are incredibly resilient. Obviously we've been around for a little while. And so it's that continuous
and adaptable.
And reasonably adaptable. That's right. So that's the key there. So when you're thinking about your team, how do you talked about 15% of your of every shift is training. How do you make up your team? So is there a particular dynamic you're trying to develop? Is there a particular structure that you're trying to operate? Because these people are overseas, right? They're not in Australia or the US, right?
No, they're scattered. They're scattered all around the globe. And it's really interesting because it was one of the things that I failed at terribly in the beginning, and we nearly lost the business. From day one, we had paying clients. Hal and I sat in the chat. We were doing 12-hour shifts. I'd do 12 hours. He would do 12 hours. It was like
brutal.
Literally. Mate, we did that for nearly 6 months. We wanted to make sure that we had a viable business before we start hiring people in. And so I'm talking 7 days a week for 6 months. It was
so
brutal.
you're sitting there. I love the origin story. So you're sitting there with what 20 or so chat windows open, waiting for somebody to say hello.
So the chat software allows you to have multiple websites in the one chat. So we've got one dashboard in front of us. Yeah, and so that is what we're doing. You're sitting there waiting for it to ping. The first couple of customers, we had a lot of website visitors, and so it was busy. It was busy. It wasn't a time where we could sleep and, I'll set an alarm or turn the chime up louder so it'll wake me. It was busy enough that it wasn't busy enough for us to fully hand off yet, but it was busy enough to the extent that, we knew after 6 months with the number of customers we had that we were actually onto something. And so that's when we started recruiting. So, but yeah, that was hard yakka. I'm so glad I did that, because every argument I've ever heard from any agent, supervisor, or anything since then about we can't do that, it's like, yes, you can. I'll show you how. I'll show you how.
Mate, that's so powerful to be a boss that's actually done the job, and this is the thing that when I'm talking to clients and they're asking, oh, we'll just recruit a sale. They're a technology company. They're very focused on technology. They've spent their whole life moving ones and zeros to make a better thing, and they go, well, we'll just hire a salesperson. It'll be okay. And there's no sales DNA in the business, and so there's no understanding of how sales or marketing or it'd be like me trying to start being a chef, like you're still working, mate. I have to operate from a very specific recipe, and I'll do it exactly like that. My wife can take some sawdust shavings and some droppings from a dog, and then make a 3-course meal. Maybe not as far as that, but you get the point. So I have no cooking process. I don't know how to think about it. I can follow a machinery when it comes to running a business. And so certainly when I recruit salespeople for my clients, you've got to make sure that you're actually ensure that job has been done by somebody, because if you don't know, then somebody's going to say, well, I know better than you, so I'm going to pull the wool over your eyes. And in pulling the wool over your eyes or telling you something that might not necessarily be 100% accurate, then it becomes a little gap. And that gap gets widened and widened as the uncertainty of the business owner is there, plus the certainty of the employee, and it just creates disassociation when it comes to the overall delivery of service, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and particularly in your field with sales, if there's not, the story, if there's not product market fit, if you can't already sell it to somebody, if you don't have some sort of process that somebody else can come in, you can't expect somebody to come in and, build their own from scratch. I mean, otherwise you can, but you're going to be paying top dollar for a VP level of sales who will come in. They're still going to take time to do it, but they will build all of that out for you. But you got to pay for it. It's as simple as that. You're not going to get
that's what our clients do.
Yeah,
our
exactly.
Clients, like and I've made all the mistakes myself. So clients come to me, Matt, can you recruit you can recruit a salesperson? We've got $70,000-$80,000 to pay them. They go, well, that's going to be challenging. And we drop them in, but this is a manufacturing business or a technology business or anything else, but they don't have any sales DNA, and that person will fail because they've got no one else to talk to. Now, I won't do any recruiting for a client unless we then bring in usually a 3-month contract behind that. And I have a team of sales professionals that work with me who can go into the organization to implement that process, who can have those conversations, who can listen to a call and go, hey, what you said there, this is the on the ground stuff that you're talking about. What you said there, just overall, you said the right thing, but just tweak it like this, change this, do some of these ones over here. And it just creates a shift, because sales and marketing is not a technical endeavor. It's not about facts. It's about feelings. It's about making sure we're positioning it appropriately in the client's context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Look, and recruiting is one of those things that, we failed dramatically when we were first kicking off. I had trouble trying to find enough applicants in Australia, quite frankly. I mean, 24/7 shift work, it's not, the best for anybody. And we were very focused on not doing rotating shifts. My brother's been a shift worker most of his life. In BlueScope, I saw what shift work does when you're rotating. We'd seen all of the health reports. We know you're much better off for circadian rhythms and your own health to have a fixed shift pattern. And so in Australia, the difficulty was getting people that wanted to be live chat agents, then were happy to stay, for instance, in the night shift. Everyone sort of wants to get away from that. So one of my mates said, hey, listen, go to the Philippines. You'll get good quality staff. They're reasonable prices. And that's where all the big BPOs are. They train up, the telcos train up, but the call centers up there. So you should get some good staff. Well, Mate, long story short, it was an unmitigated disaster. We had agents that were pretending to be other agents or getting their auntie and uncle to come and sit down for them and all this other stuff. And it was like, just became a nightmare. So I started recruiting around the globe, and funnily enough, found it was a recruiter that was helping me in South America that actually said, you know what, you need to go to India. In India, you'll find the people you're looking for because they know they're taught the King's English very well. They know English. As much as their accents are terrible, on a keyboard you don't hear the accent. They're super smart. Most have got double degrees and well qualified.
Yep.
Compliant. They'll do what you need to do, et cetera, et cetera. And so my business partner, Indian Heritage, and he said, you know, much as I love my fellow countrymen, Terry, this is way back, you know, we're talking in 2015. If we've got an Indian call center, it's got such a bad rap here in Australia, we'll never be able to sell this. Long story short, 6 months after I've gone and found and started to build a bit of a team in India, he said, man, this quality of these chats fantastic. You know, what's going on? I said, no, guess what? It's your fellow countrymen, sir. So, and we're always transparent. Always said the team is scattered around the globe, and they are. I mean, we've got remote staff. They travel. We've got some staff all through Asia, in the US, some are UK. I know. I think we've even got. There's a few in Australia now, not too many, but they're scattered around everywhere. I mean, the only thing that's important to us is that, you know, you talk about a remote workforce, is that they're there at the start of their shift and they work through until the end of their shift. That's what's important to us. We want them to make sure that they're living their life outside of that.
Yes.
And it's rigorous though, because it is, you know, we've got to run 24/7 shift patterns. We've got to manage all of that through. So it's pretty rigorous, but we've built a good process now and it works quite well for us.
So what would be the hot tip in relation to recruiting somebody overseas? Do you have any hot tips or processes you go through now?
Get somebody to help you. I mean, we've now built we don't use anybody externally. We've got an internal team now that does it. So we've got our own recruitment operations manager who can recruit anywhere. So we've got supervisors that are supervising remotely all over the place. So for instance, when our shifts start, everyone logs into the Zoom call. It's like a virtual office. Everyone sits in there. Even though they're sitting, chatting, doing their own thing, they all sit in a virtual office every day. We started that actually at the beginning of COVID, believe it or not. Before then, I wasn't worried about that so much.
Okay.
But it was one of the things that got me thinking about, you know, everyone's complaining about this remote lifestyle, which I'd never considered before because that was the lifestyle we'd all had. And so once we did that, it was good. Actually, it brought the team a lot closer together and there's a lot more collegiate feel. And there was an accelerated learning process of the new people we're bringing on board as well. So it's been very positive. So now we just run a 24/7 Zoom call and the people log in and out as they go. So the shift changeovers, get to see each other, etc. It's just like a virtual office. It's that's how we operate.
So at any time you can pop in and sort of just
just drop in, say, hi guys, how you going? I haven't done it for a little while, and I've got to say I've been, it's very slack and remiss of me. I should be doing it much more than I do. I recognise that. And I'll say it publicly now. I'm going to start doing it at least once a week. There we go.
There you go. Got it.
So, I'll get back into that habit again. But look, in terms of recruiting, if you're stepping into overseas help to start with, I'd say get help, dip your toe. There's plenty of agencies that offer staffing solutions.
Yes.
I would take the first step that way to see if it's right for you, whether it works or not, because remote working, if you're managing a remote team, it shouldn't matter too much. The recruiting side of it, get some help, use a local recruiter or use one of the local agencies. But if you've got your processes set up so that you can manage a remote team, it shouldn't be any different. I mean, sometimes there's cultural differences, language differences. You've got to be very careful and aware of that. You know, that just comes back to, if you want to really simplify it, that just comes back to basic delegation. You know, when you delegate a job to somebody, there's 5 points, you know, you tell them, you show them, you get them to show you, you get them to show you, then you agree what the outcome is and when you're going to follow up and check on each other, make sure they can do it. It's like, if you do it properly, if you delegate properly, then, you know, there's no barriers. It's when you just assume that somebody's understanding what you're asking them to do from a conversation or from a written note that you can get, you know, interpretation issues. Yeah.
Got it. So who do you work best with? Who's your customer that you, not individual, but what type of customers really get the most value out of your business? Because everybody goes, from this conversation, they go, well, I need one of those. But I know that I've referred you to some people over the course of the last 12 months of our friendship is you go, oh, this person's not right because of X, Y, and Z. Do you just want to share with the listeners who do you work best with?
So the main people that seem to work best with us, and I'll say that because it was the way that we niched down was through inbound, is really B2B tech companies that are using their website to generate leads for a sales team. So there's a marketing team, there's a sales team, and they're using your website to book meetings, because what we do is qualify those meetings so much that, you don't have to worry about a form fill or someone booking a demo that's not in your ICP. That's all completely just disappears. You get meetings with people you want to. So a little bit broader than, and from a scale perspective, 50 to 200 employees seems to be the sweet spot for us. I think mentioned earlier, if they get much bigger than that, then they should be big enough to do themselves. And I'd always say, if utopia for website conversions is to have your own team sitting in live chat. That is it. No bots or anything on the front end. Have your own team in there. Next best thing, us. We can help you for that. But so we find that much larger organizations and that can generally, manage it themselves. We do support after hours for a couple of the larger organizations. In the last 12 months, so some of the inquiries, the referrals that you've given me, and some of the inbound inquiries I've had in the last, probably since about October, have been much smaller companies. And so we've now built a second offer. We've got a light duty offer and heavy duty offer, if you want to call it. Heavy duty, you would get fully qualified meetings into your sales team. The light duty offer now is put the snippet of code into your website and we'll be live in 24 to 48 hours, and we'll just use the information that's in your website and we'll push people to your call to actions in the website. Now, over time, you can refine it. We'll open a Slack channel or send us email and give us feedback on the chats and so forth. But, after my business partner, Pal and I spoke about doing something like this nearly 8 years ago, and we just weren't ready then. The processes involved in being able to, jump on a completely unknown business's website and start having conversations with their website visitors in such a way that's going to, give a credible experience and some value. You can't do that. So, but we're at a stage now where we can do that. In fact, I'm not even promoting that offer. I've had conversations with half a dozen people. Nearly all of them have signed up. And within 48 to 72 hours, so sign up on a Wednesday lunchtime, we went live Friday morning and booked 4 sales qualified meetings for them on the Friday afternoon. So Fantastic. It's that's the light duty offer, how quick and fast a fleet we can be now. But for the bigger businesses, we still recommend go through that process of, the full onboarding. But that's it. And really, beyond that, we'll talk about B2B tech. It's really any B2B business, quite frankly, that needs, it's using their website to generate leads for a sales team.
And they've got to drive a certain volume of traffic as well for it to be worth their while, right?
Well, not so much anymore, because they either have the light duty offer or they have the heavy duty offer. So the heavy duty offer, really 20 plus leads, sales qualified leads. So I'm not talking about MQLs here. We've gone live with clients at about 100 MQLs, form fills through their website, and then they're only getting 5 sales qualified leads out the other side of it. We only charge for the sales qualified meetings that we book, or the fully qualified to whatever qualification levels you want meetings. And so it doesn't matter how many MQLs you get, it's the pipeline that's important. And that's where we impact, is the pipeline. So if you're not getting the pipeline now, then it probably means you haven't got product market fit, or you're not, your marketing's not working somewhere. That does need to be working. But on the flip side, the light duty service, one of those clients has hardly any traffic. We've had about 3 conversations, but those 3 conversations have been people asking about particular features for the product that they don't have yet, because they're in these early stages themselves. And so the gold for them was, we'd been thinking about that, but didn't know whether we wanted to do it. But all 3 chats we had asked about that one particular feature. So it's like, okay, we're going to fast track
market feedback.
Now. Exactly. I won't jump into it, but there's literally, if you were to list out the real benefits of that an organization can get value out of live chat, there's about 18 very specific benefits that you get. Everything from customer feedback, client retention, ABM nurturing, lead generation, pipeline generation, et cetera. But there's, it's much more than just a lead generator or customer support. That's for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, mate, look, I've really enjoyed our conversation today. I think it's been just interesting how people are approaching the overseas market and how people are approaching, because you're mainly selling into the US, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's 85% of our business in the US.
There you go. Very good. Actually, I do have a question. So as an ex-steel man, and speaking of the US, how do you think the current policy movement in the US are going to change the Australian steel industry?
It depends which company you're in. So, for instance, BlueScope has maybe 6,000 employees in North America. They've got a big steel presence. They've got a steel founder, a steel making business in the US at North Star. And they've also got a big presence in downstream steel businesses in shed making and steel processing plants. So they've got a good footprint. I think that there will be some dispensation already for them. And look, the end result is and so they've got US dollars flowing back into their Australian coffers, which always help their profitability from a conversion rate perspective. Yes. It wasn't too good when the conversion rate was above 85 cents, I can tell you, but where it is at the moment is pretty good. I think overall, Australia is, a net importer from the US. And so I think there'll be dispensation. I don't think that the tariffs are going to hit, and I don't really think it'll have that much of an impact from us directly. I think where we'll see a bigger impact is that others that have the tariffs imposed on them will mean that US companies will potentially come looking to Australia to fill some of those gaps. And so probably a little bit more positive than negative. Neutral to positive. I don't see it having a negative impact. You see that what happened in the share prices, they had a bit of a dip, they jumped back and recovered again. So, it's yet to be seen. But look, overall, I get where Trump's coming from in trying to pull manufacturing back into the US. I'm fearful for Australia's future. We've let too much manufacturing go away from our shores as well. I'm not saying we need a Trump in Australia, but certainly a bigger focus on manufacturing and Australian businesses. I think it's what I see happening from a technology perspective. Got some great businesses, Atlas and Canva, fantastic. And there's so much more now interest in the technology sector and investment in the technology sector. Manufacturing is not antiquated. Have a look around you. Steel is everywhere. Without steel, there is nothing. It is everywhere. Yep. With concrete, there's manufacturing businesses that it's the backbone. It's the backbone. It really is. So anyway, I won't get down that bandwagon.
No,
it's answer the question.
I love asking questions like that because it's just, you read what's happening on X or Twitter, you get fed a certain version of it on the news, and then you sort of smash those two things together to figure out what might actually be the truth. And so it's always nice to ask somebody who's, as an insider or an ex-insider.
Well, ex-insider, a long time ago, ex-insider, I must say, over a decade now. And, my opinions are my own and nobody else's. And
although it wouldn't be bad to have a bit of an audit on the government, see how they're spending our money, to be honest.
Well, that, don't get me started on that one. I've been a big proponent for a long time of removing layers or departments, make super councils and take one layer of government out somewhere. We've got too many, this local, state, federal. I just think there's too much waste, too much duplicated effort. So,
anyway. 100%.
I applied for a job with Doge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
How's that going? Tell me about that.
No, I didn't even hear anything back. But I saw on Twitter that there was a post put out, anyone that's interested in a job, let us know. So send a note back. This is who I am. LinkedIn post, LinkedIn profile. I didn't get to the start. I didn't send my resume or anything like that. But I never heard anything back. But with my background and what I've done in the past, it's a job that I would have enjoyed being in, get my teeth into.
Yeah, because you've had a long run as an accounting space as well, right? Like
early on, probably the first 5 years or so. But always, I've profit and loss balance sheet responsibility for businesses, so I understand how cash flows and what levers to pull in a business to make it work. And my career has always been sort of pulled into underperforming businesses to turn them around. So it's something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I'm currently working with a client. I won't, no names and no court martials at the moment, but they're working with institutions who are got budgets of $1.2 billion a year, mostly funded by the federal government, and they're still losing a couple $100 million a year, just over and over, just ongoing, and we'll just do it again next year. And the value add is questionable.
Wow,
really questionable. Well, overall, philosophically, it's a good value add, but really a delivery of service, it's questionable. So it's just absolutely fascinating what's going on out there, and hopefully there is a little bit of that, but. I think we can, thank goodness Australia's more centrist, right?
Well, absolutely. I've got a long-term agency client who is looking at working with an organisation that helps government departments reduce cost. And there's a big interest for that at the moment. Yeah, be interested to see how that goes. But it's just a hard space to get into.
Yeah, yeah. Well, mate, look, I've really enjoyed our conversation. Nice little detour at the end because I just follow what my nose. I'm just interested in what I'm interested in.
Yeah, of course.
And look, thank you so much for your time. And if anybody wants to get in contact with you, I'll make sure that your details are at the bottom of this and wherever else we publish it.
Thank you.
Once again, Terry, thanks very much for your time today. See you, mate.
Pleasure, Matthew. Bye.
Bye-bye. Session.